Thank you to everybody who watched episode 1 in our ongoing 3-part series to help you finish amazing sounding music that you love without the frustration or overwhelm. If you haven't yet seen episode 1, I'll link it in the card above. I highly encourage you to watch that before this one. But as a quick recap of what we talked about, we covered the counterintuitive approach of limiting your options, focusing on quantity, and allowing the space for experimentation and discovery, and how that will actually help you be more creative. These are also the first 3 stages of the Workflow Wizardry system, which allows you to finish better music faster by working less in the studio. It's the exact same system that I've used to finish my latest album and that I've developed with my 15 plus years of being a musician and 10 plus years as a certified audio engineer. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about what does it take to become a fully independent artist and finish amazing sounding music that you love without the frustration, confusion, and overwhelm. Let's be honest, there's quite a bit involved in hitting that goal, but allow me to share what the most important factor to finishing mind-blowing music is: songwriting and composition. Here's why. There's countless legendary, timeless songs that didn't have the best production in the world. There's also a zillion songs that sound good, but have no real impact. Another reason is there's no easier way to finish an amazing production and pro-sounding mix than a great song. Let me show you exactly what I mean by exploring some of the modern AI tools. Okay, so one of those tools is called Suno. And Suno, basically you enter in a prompt and it will create an entire production for you without having to do anything or participate in the process whatsoever. And for me personally, this isn't super attractive because I love the process of making music. Like, I wouldn't want to outsource that because that's the whole reason, right? But I want to show you what I mean by something that sounds good, but really doesn't have any impact, okay? So I did some prompts and I played around with a bunch of ideas, and I'm just going to play you some quick examples of some of these songs, okay?
Feeling the beat, syncopated guitar, electrifying heat. The universe is calling.
Right, like to me already, this doesn't hit me at all. And here's one, I think this one was the best one objectively from all of these. And this one has a little bit of top line that, hey, this could be an interesting idea for you to get inspired by and create your own thing. But again, like, this sounds like process stuff that you would hear maybe on the radio or whatever. And if you make this kind of music, totally no diss. It's not about that. But I'm just showing you what I mean by like amazing sounding production with very little impact. Okay, so let's go ahead and play this guy.
Feeling the pulse of the universe, I understand. Syncopated beats weaving through the air. Melodies of the cosmos beyond compare. I close my eyes and I'm lost in the stars.
Like, that sounded pretty decent. The top line was cool, some cool harmony ideas. But again, for me, this doesn't hit me at all. This is just going to get lost with the sea of other things that sound the same. So this begs the question, what actually really matters as an independent artist if you can just type in a prompt and poop out music that sounds like this, right? What matters is the song, is how you're communicating your essence, your artistic vision, what you want to say through the music so that it has humanness. It expresses you, and it's not just a product, right? You're communicating part of yourself in the process. Okay. And also you're connecting with the process in a way that is invigorating, it's stimulating, you're learning a lot about yourself. That's what it's all about, right? So these AI tools are really cool. Like, you could use them as inspiration. You could use it to help you write some stuff, to get you out of a creative block, whatever, get inspired, all that great stuff. But in my opinion, like, all this stuff sounds good, but to be honest, it sounds generic and lacks any sign of humanness. There's definitely something missing. And that thing that is missing in this type of music is the exact number one thing that I think is the most important thing to get right in all of music production and in being an independent music artist. So let me share with you the secrets that I found to finishing the best music that you can with your current abilities and that expresses yourself artistically, that has some of you in the music. Number 1 is rough compositions. So what do I mean by a rough composition? It's simply an idea for a track with a beginning, middle, and end, nothing more, nothing less. And the aim is to think in big brushstrokes first before zooming into the fine details. It doesn't have to have all the right parts, and it doesn't require a ton of effort. Everything in the first 3.5 stages of the system should be done relatively fast, okay? We're not slowing ourselves down by meandering in details and trying to tweak something because we're just trying to get volume. We're just trying to keep the creative ball rolling, all right? And yes, when we get to composing those ideas, we want to do it fast. Why? This allows you to make more music because you won't be getting what I like to call lost in the sauce. Okay, and finishing more compositions has many advantages. You'll get more practice writing songs. You'll get better songs through that process. You'll stay focused on what matters most to create an impactful piece instead of getting lost in pointless details. There's also a huge, massive benefit to focusing on rough compositions first. You'll avoid wasting time polishing turds. Some of your songs won't be that great. And that's totally fine, okay? Because some of them will be amazing. Making something average or mediocre is part of any healthy creative process. Not every piece that you write will be good, nor should you expect them to be. So how do we do this in practice? For example, if I were to aim to finish 10 songs in 90 days, I'd aim to get at least 20 rough compositions completed in 45 days, which is half of that time. From there, I'd pick the best 10 to commit to moving forward and finishing. Only at that point do I concern myself with any of the fine-tuned details. Now, you're probably thinking that I don't have the time, right? I can't be spending hours in the studio to make this many compositions. But contrary to popular belief, you don't need to spend 8 hours a day in the studio to create amazing music. Countless legendary songs have come together in a matter of minutes. This means that more work does not necessarily equal better music. So it's not about how hard you work, it's about how often you show up. And at the end of the day, we make time for what is important to us. You can make massive progress with your music in as little as 30 minutes a day with the right process. So let's look at a really cool example that demonstrates this. The song Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden. Fun fact, it was written by Chris Cornell, of course, and it was written in 15 minutes. Okay. All right. In an interview, Cornell himself said that in a matter of 10 to 15 minutes, the whole song came together and he wrote it using a Leslie speaker. And this type of approach is exactly how I was able to finish 10 tracks in 84 days in 1 to 2 hours max per day. So I just want to give you a quick breakdown as to how this looks in the system. With Calibrate, again, I just took some time to design 4 instruments that I really liked, that were in the direction I want to go, that I started to get used to and made them expressive, right? And then from there, I just jam out a bunch of ideas. Right now, there's just one in here, and I've processed the ones I've done in the past, but it's just no quality, just quantity, focusing on jamming and outputting the music and tracking it in the system. And then now I've got probably 20 some ideas that I think are awesome and or potentially are already a full track that I'm going to experiment and play with before moving forward towards composing. So this is all before I've even started this next album cycle. And this kind of interconnected, systematic, staged approach to your music allows it that you can always have new ideas in the pipeline. So if I want to finish 5 songs or finish an album, I've already got some momentum built with my system, and then I can continue to jam more ideas, design new instruments, or just focus on composing, mixing and mastering, whatever it is, to fit my goal. Number 2 is cycling your focus. So the other side to writing your best music is to maintain one of your most precious resources, objectivity. In other words, freedom from personal bias, to be able to perceive the music as it is, not what you think it is. Now, why is this important? Because the more objective you can remain on your own music, the easier it will be for you to make decisions as to what it actually needs. This is exactly why getting feedback from the right people can be so powerful. They have something that you will never have, the ability to hear your music for the first time. Let me ask you if you've ever experienced this. You share your music with another musician or producer, and they almost immediately know if there's a problem. If there is, they mention it, and you're usually like, I was actually thinking that might be the case. The only difference is that they could see it more clearly with their unbiased ears. Here's a technique I use to help maintain some sort of objectivity on my own music. It's called recycling the cycle. Let me quickly show you what I mean by recycling the cycle. So in the system, no matter what stage I'm in, I'll cycle my focus between projects in that stage and between stages. So for example, track 1 in Compose, I got 3 tracks in Compose here. And then I might, in my next session, go to track 2 in Compose. And then maybe I'll move on to this other track in Extract for my next session, then go to this track for my next one in Extract. And then by the time I circle back around to track number 1, right, my subconscious will have done some processing and I'm going to have fresh ears for this first idea. And you'd be pleasantly surprised how sometimes you immediately know what a song needs simply because you've given yourself some space. And another added benefit to this is that it will help you stay consistent because cycling and alternating your focus between compose another track, go to extract, maybe you go to flow some new ideas, you design an instrument, you go back to extract, and you're cycling your focus, it will constantly give you a new creative focus and keep things engaging. So cycling your focus is where the true power of this system comes in because it helps keep things exciting, fun, simple, and it leverages a lot of our subconscious processing as well. Now, some people resist the idea of a systematic approach like this. They'll say something like, music shouldn't have a system. And I actually agree. The system is for you, not your music, right? Notice how nothing we've talked about so far is a formula or regurgitated recipe for a hit song, right? The framework isn't a cage that's going to shackle you in and become a soulless android. It creates a structure that you can make your own and most importantly, keeps you consistent, right? So it's more about your ability to consistently take action and shifting your creative focus at different times to keep things fun and snappy and moving forward. It's not so much a recipe or a system for the music itself. All right. And there's multiple different approaches you could take to create a system like this, but a good system supports you as an artist and lets you maintain all creative control. You might be thinking that this won't work for what I do, or there's no formula for the creative process. And the truth is that all acts of creation follow the same stages. What you do within the stages is infinitely variable. Okay, so making music follows the same steps. If you're producing a video, it follows the same steps. If you're designing a building, it follows the same steps. And it's what you do within those steps that is the art, and that's what makes it yours. When you find your own way of mastering these stages, you can truly be prolific and unlock your artistry and creativity to a whole other level. All right, let me demonstrate this point with some of the most prolific artists of all time. Pablo Picasso finished over 13,500 paintings throughout his career. Mozart composed over 600 works. Frank Zappa published 62 albums in his lifetime. And although I'm sure that they all had different approaches and techniques, it's clear that they've all mastered some sort of universal principles within their creative process. The key is to know yourself and piece together your own insights into your own way of doing things. 3 is what I like to call the sine wave song structure. Now, we've talked about strategic approach and systematic workflows, but how do we go about actually finishing amazing compositions? Composition is a massive subject, and there are an infinite amount of ways that we can approach arranging music. We could leverage things such as music theory, traditional composition techniques, emulating the structure of a reference track. But at the end of the day, what makes a great song is the same as what makes a great story. And what is at the core of a great narrative? Tension and release. It's the same with movies. You can have a poorly produced movie with a great story and people will love it regardless. And you can have a AAA big budget Hollywood production with a boring story and you'll stop watching it after 10 minutes. It's the same concept of tension and release that makes that good story that is the single most powerful concept to create impactful music. What does this mean practically? It means leveraging dynamics, contrasting opposites, playing with expectation as we compose our music. Allow me to share one of the models that I always come back to structure my music. It's called the sine wave song structure. The powerful thing about this model is it keeps the idea of tension release as the main focus in arranging your song. All right, so here is the model that I use to structure my songs most often. And the first thing to point out is that the peaks are the climaxes of your track. Energy flows towards and or away from these poles, and then they go through 3 stages of transformation in each section. So if we look over here at peak number 1 with this little sun, that's one energetic climax in the tune. And then we go back here to the moon, peak number 2 could be another energetic climax of your song. Then you'll notice that each section has 3 kind of subsections within it, right? Section 1 has 1, 2, 3, section 2 has 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. And each of these stages in the sections have a specific energy that they're bringing to your overall arrangement, right? So if we look at stages 1, 4, 7, and 10, which are the first stage of each section, these types of stages are intros, drops, switches, a main idea, and the kind of energy you're going for is an entering, a leading, or a primary energy. If we move on to section 2, 5, 8, or 11, which is the middle stage of these sections, this is more so for harmonic and rhythmic development, right? And the vibe you're going for is continuing, progressing, developing, all that kind of stuff. And then finally, 3, 6, 9, and 12 are the third stage of all of these sections. And this is stuff like buildups, breakdowns, transitions, outros. And the vibe you're going for is like transforming, dissolving, and creating tension. And then within these peaks, like what you're going for is ultimate climax or a sense of resolve, a sense of release, right? Where it's definitely a major point of your song. Think like a narrative. It's a major event in the story, right? Where a lot of the story changes because of that event or whatever, that situation. And all great music has something like that within it. Now, again, within creating tension and release, there's almost an infinite amount of ways you could go about it, but here's just a few examples that you could leverage. So you could explore the contrasting of opposites, which would be loud and soft, dense and sparse, close and far, bright and dark, etc. You could leverage repetition or looping, because if you repeat a smaller motif over time, that's going to create tension. Right? It's like, where is this going? We're repeating the same thing over and over. Then when you introduce something different, it will resolve some of that tension you've created. And you can also think about the melodic contour of your melodies as well as the voice leading in your chords, right? Because if you think about any melody, a good one, for example, is Happy Birthday. In Happy Birthday, we have 4 different phrases in that main melody. And if you think about it and listen to it, right? I'm not going to sing it for you, but in the third phrase, that phrase creates tension, right? If you just stop singing it there, it leaves a sense of, oh, something has to be resolved, right? So it's that kind of tension and release that we're looking to structure within our piece. Now, there's a lot more we can cover about composition, but there's just a quick rundown of how I approach it within the compose stage of the system that I use. Drop a comment about your biggest insight that you got from this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now that we've covered how to do what's most important to understand as a music creator, which is writing amazing songs, we still need to cover how to get it past the finish line and achieve that majestic pro sound. And that's exactly what we'll cover in the third video of this series. So stay tuned and I'll see you in that next video.